As the Players Cup 4 grind continues, I'm going to be showing off the best anti-meta deck right now. As there are so many Pokemon V and GX in the meta, this is going to be an excellent counter to all of those, so be sure to subscribe down below if you enjoyed the video and you'd like to see more, as I do post videos multiple times a week, and as always there are timestamps in the description. Here we are, this is the deck list that I'm rocking for Decidueye right now. Of course, if you're not familiar, we do have the Decidueye, 4 copies of it, with the Deep Forest Camo. This ability is going to protect you against all of those pesky Pokemon GX and Pokemon V, even the VMAXs as well. They're going to not be able to deal any damage to you whatsoever. Now you still are affected by effects of attacks, which are pretty annoying, and I will get onto that, but the ability being able to stop all damage is extremely powerful, and you're going to have people just rage quitting against you because it is that strong and their decks aren't equipped to deal with it, and that's exactly what we want in order to easily win games here, especially in the Players Cup 4. And of course the attack here is actually pretty nice. We do have the Splitting Arrow, which deals 90 damage and then 20 damage to 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon, so very nice and reasonable amount of damage just for a grass and colourless energies too, so it's very efficient. Now of course, having a look at the other cards in the deck, we have a 4-2-4 line of the Decidueye so that we can get it out nice and consistently, but for the other Pokemon we also have a big focus on the Snorlax here. Since the Snorlax has Gourmandize, which is an ability which will let you draw until you have 7 cards, but it does end your turn, so can be a good way of keeping up your consistency in the early game, and you don't really mind if you get knocked out, as you are going to be going into the Decidueyes, which your opponent can't damage anyways. And of course we have the Apom here as well, which is a very interesting card we have to briefly cover. It has the Yank Out attack, which lets you randomly discard cards from your opponent's hand until they have 5 cards remaining, and this is specifically for the Lucario and Melmetal matchup, because in that matchup you typically get into a situation where both players are just drawing and passing their turns as quickly as possible in order to win before the timer, or to deck out your opponent just from draw passing and having no resources. So this card really allows you to win that matchup nice and easily, because you wait until your opponent has a massive hand and then you put this guy into play and you discard all of those cards, or most of them at least, and then you're not going to be decking out but your opponent will. So great counter for that matchup specifically. Otherwise, pretty much a useless card that you can discard. We do also have the Mew here, which is particularly for the early game for protecting your Rowlets, but beyond that you're not really going to need this, and it is just for protecting your little dudes. Then we also have our pseudo Pokemon here in the form of Pokédoll, since you can throw this up and even use it as a pseudo switching as well, but mainly just to stall while you get your Decidueye into play. Speaking of getting Decidueye into play, we do have multiple copies of Rosa here, which you are going to need because it allows you to search your deck for a Pokemon, a basic energy and a trainer card after one of your Pokemon get knocked out, and this even works after a Pokédoll gets knocked out because it does count as a Pokemon, so you can use Rosa very effectively. That's why we have so many copies of them. Then of course we have some key consistency cards like multiple Quick Balls and Lava Balls, we have 4 rare candies, and we have our Tag Call, since this is the Tag Call engine of the deck. So we have things like Cynthia and Caitlyn, Guzma and Hala, and Mallow and Lana. Mallow and Lana particularly for decks that don't one-hit you, for, well, non-GX decks that don't one-hit you, and you're able to heal off that damage, then this is great for that, as well as just generally having a switching option. And then the Guzma and Hala of course gets you your stadiums and tools and all of that good stuff. Then of course we are playing the Turf Field because it does let you get your Grass Evolution Pokemon, so you've got to have a couple of copies of Turf Fields in here. And then for our energy counts, we have the Grass Energies protect against special conditions, we have our Captures and Weakness Guard energies so that we can get our basic Pokemon out and also protect against our weaknesses, because the Volcanions are very good, and as you'll see in the matches, we do have some very good matches coming up here. The Weakness Guard energy comes in extremely clutch in those games, as well as the big Parasol here. I do have 1 copy of this to protect against any effects of attacks, things like special conditions or removing energy. This comes in extremely important. And then we also have a couple of copies of Big Charm just to buff our HP even more just in case it helps out in any way. But that is the deck. You do have to have some time with it and play around with it to see what suits you best and see if you enjoy it, as it is a somewhat tricky deck to play at times, but for the most part you set up your Decidueye and you also win against a whole bunch of decks in the meta. That's the plan anyway. Let's see if we can pull it off using another key in Players Cup 4. Be sure to give the video a like if you do enjoy it at any point, and I'll see you in the games. Start off with the Snorlax as well as the Rowlet and some energy that we can attach, so pretty good starting hand since we can get a lot of draws with the Gormandise. And we're up against Eternatus from the looks of things, since my opponent has the Yveltal here. Unfortunately, that is a pretty good starting Pokemon since it does have the Derail attack. We might as well put down the Big Charm as well here, and we'll play down the Turffield I think, but I'm not sure. It only gets us a Pokemon, my opponent could bump it. I'm going to hold on to it for now, and we'll just go for the Gormandise to draw 3 cards. We do get the Decidueye as well as the Guzma, Scoop Up Net, but no Rare Candy unfortunately, otherwise we could have had the turn 2 Decidueye there, which would have been excellent. My opponent using a Quick Ball to get rid of a switch, and there we go, it is indeed Eternatus VMAX that we're going to be up against. This is typically a favourable matchup since they are focused on those V Pokemon, but depending upon the build of the Eternatus deck, if it's the Poison build, then this is definitely going to be a difficult matchup, but hopefully it's not that, and it is the more aggressive Zigzagoon build, then we should be totally fine here. My opponent aggressively drawing, getting rid of more switch cards. They're down 2 switch already and a Boss's Orders, as well as 2 VMAX, 2 Eternatus VMAX discarded, which is insane. Typically Eternatus doesn't really play Ornament Rod, maybe this deck does, but yeah, the fact that they're down 2 already is pretty incredible. We could also just see a bunch of attacks from my opponent, perhaps using the Yveltal to try and attack us, so we will have to try and get multiple Rowlets down if we can. We have the Guzma that we can make use of here, as well as a Boss's Orders, so we have a couple of options. I think we'll start off by putting down Turffield and getting ourselves a Grass Evolution Pokemon. I think we'll just get ourselves the Dartrix here, and we can evolve into Dartrix. We have Guzma. I'm tempted to play here so that we get a bigger draw off of the Gormandise, so we'll go with that. We'll get rid of the Theon as well as the Boss's Orders, since that's going to be reasonable discards. We can always get those back later if we need it, and we are going to be stalling my opponent after all. Let's get the Grass Energy, I think. No, we need the Capture Energy for sure here, so we can get more stuff out. So we get the Capture, we'll get the Big Parasol as well. Why not? Unfortunately, we don't have another Turffield in the deck. It is prized, which is a bit unfortunate, but we'll attach this Capture here. It means that we can get our second Rowlet into play, and we'll attach a Big Parasol to it as well. No reason not to. And we can Gormandise once again, drawing 3 cards, and we're well on our way here, so we can get our Decidueye into play on this coming turn, assuming of course that my opponent doesn't have a Boss's Orders. They do have the Eternatus VMAX here, but they didn't get any energy, so they wouldn't actually be able to get a knockout, which is perfectly fine. So even if they have the Boss's Orders, we'll still be in a very good position. They did play the Crobat down to use Dark Ascent and draw a couple of cards, and we now see the energy attachment coming down. Getting the first hit in on this Yveltal is actually going to be huge here, as it's going to be the main threat we're actually worried about, so really getting this attack in first is going to be crucial. My opponent does play the Marnie, which is very unfortunate that we have to lose this hand, and we at least have the Turffield. Hopefully my opponent doesn't replace the Stadium, because that's really going to mess us up, especially with this hand. But we do at least have the Boss's Order, the Professor's Research, so we can make use of that to draw a bunch of cards here, which is great. We have the Apom that we're not going to need in this matchup whatsoever, and we do have the Grass Energy we can attach to Rowlet. My opponent just passing over to us once again, which is excellent. We're going to start off with the Turffield. My opponent thankfully didn't replace the Stadium, so we can get our Decidueye out. And I think we do have the Rare Candy that we could just make use of here. And honestly, I kind of like that, since then we're not wasting any rare candy. So we'll go with that. We are most likely to draw into a Decidueye anyway, so we'll go with that. We'll get the level ball and take a Pokemon out, probably the Mew here, since we're not going to need it in this matchup, and just discard this hand. Looking for the Scoop Up Net as well as the other Decidueye. Unfortunately, not going to be able to find it here, and we don't really have a lot going on, to be honest. We'll just go with a level ball and a quick ball as well, try and pare this hand down a little bit. We could take another Rowlet and start setting up a third Decidueye. I don't see why not. And we can get that into play, use the quick ball like I said, get rid of this Snorlax as we're not going to need it, and then just shuffle the deck up before using another Gourmandise, drawing us 3 cards once again. Very consistent at drawing 3. It's very much like using a hop or a how at the end of your turn. We do see the Stadium replacement coming down now from my opponent, but it's definitely a few turns too late as we've made very good use of it, and we did draw into the Decidueye off of our Gourmandise, so we will be able to get a second Decidueye into play. My opponent opting to attach onto their Eternatus VMAX still, and they're even retreating, so they will be able to get a knockout with the Eternatus here, taking 1 prize on the Snorlax, as well as going for the Marnie, so all those cards go to the bottom of the deck. But we do have our but we do have our Decidueye already in play, so yeah, I'm not really sure what my opponent's hoping to achieve here. We can easily have a bunch of ways to get a grass energy or any energy here to actually start attacking as well. They get another Zigzagoon into play, so their bench is now totally full and they have no other options for attackers. Like I said, their main attacker really should be this Yveltal here, since it has Derail to get rid of our energy as well as dealing 60 damage with Clutch. But they are going to be taking the knockout here, Dread End, dealing 270 damage and taking out the Snorlax. We can promote our Decidueye, so it's going to stop my opponent from dealing any damage to us. And we top deck the Decidueye as well, and we do have the Dartrix that we can put into play. Let's tag call and see what options we have available. We have the Caitlyn and Cynthia as well as the Guzman Hallow that we can get out of the deck. I think we could use the Caitlyn and Cynthia first perhaps. I'm not really sure what we'd want to get back though, perhaps the Boss's Orders I guess, since we do only have one of those. We could make use of Guzman Hallow, but the thing is we don't really want to get rid of all of these cards that we have, but I don't know. We do want to start attacking pretty soon here, so I think we will just be aggressive and go for the Guzman Hallow, discarding the Big Charm and Caitlyn Cynthia, as we won't really be needing those all too much, and we'll grab ourselves the Weakness Guard energy, hold off on that Capture energy for now, and we can start attacking into my opponent here, definitely putting damage onto the Yveltal, and I think we'll also put it onto a Zigzagoon perhaps, and start trying to take out some Zigzagoons since they do have quite low HP. I suppose they did also have the Yveltal over here, so we probably should have attacked that one, but it's fine, we can do that on the following turn and still target down the Zigzagoon afterwards. Now my opponent is going to be pretty much stuck here, since the only way that they can take a knockout is by using Boss's Orders to bring up our Dartrix, but if they do that they won't have any attackers that they can go through as. We see they are going to be attaching onto the Yveltal here, as predicted. They finally see that line of play where they're going to have to use the Yveltal, use the Scoop Up Net on the Zigzagoon as well, which is interesting, continuing to put damage onto our Decidueye with the Big Charm. So it does still have quite a bit of HP remaining, which is fine by me. And my opponent just looking to decide what they do here. They do have quite a small hand like us, so they're not going to have a lot of options available, but they did get the Switch in their hand, and they can start making use of Derail here, using the Marnie as well, which is very nice of them since that will give us some extra cards to work with, actually getting us into the energy that we need. But of course if my opponent gets rid of the grass energy, then that's not going to be ideal. So let's see what they go for here. Probably just a Derail, getting rid of our colorless energy, but Ah no, of course, I totally forgot. I knew there was a reason for a big power cell. Of course, the big brain plays are so big I just didn't even realise it myself. Stops my opponent from using the derail effect in order to discard our energy, so we're going to be all safe there. And we can definitely hold on to the energy that we have in our hand, just in case they use boss's orders and get rid of the benched energy. Now we can use our attack again, and we can start putting damage onto the Yveltal, as well as the Zigzagoon that we damaged earlier. And that's going to set us up nicely, so if the benched Yveltal comes into the active spot, we can get a one-hit knockout on that, and we can now focus our attention elsewhere, like the Zigzagoon and the Eternatus that we damaged. We see the Great Ball from my opponent. Let's see what they get. Just another Eternatus V, which is perfectly fine with me. And we're going to get a Pokemon Communication to fit that back into the deck. Definitely not any Pokemon that they're looking for, since their bench is completely full, but they are going to be getting a Crobat, so perhaps they still have Scoop Up Net left to get a Zigzagoon back into their hand, and then play down the Crobat. We'll have to see. And my opponent is going to be attaching that second energy onto Yveltal, so that they can hit us for 60 damage, but we can't easily get the knockouts here, so we're not too worried about that. And we do top deck the Mallow and Lana as well, which is perfect. I think we will just get rid of the rare candy, as we're not going to need that. And yeah, we should be good here, just to take the knockout. Yeah, we still have 50 damage on this active Decidueye, but that's totally fine, as we're going to be protecting the benched one here. Once again, put damage onto the Zigzagoon, as well as start building up on the Eternatus VMAX now. Like I said, if my opponent promotes the other Yveltal, we can easily get a one-hit knockout on it, and they're only going to be able to use Derail to get rid of an energy, which I'm not too worried about whatsoever. There is the energy attachment coming onto the active. They do have the Crobat that we saw them pick up last turn, so they can use the Dark Asset, draw a couple of cards here. They are actually getting the full effect of the 6 cards going into their hand, and you got to imagine that they're probably going to be decking out pretty soon, since they do only have 10 cards remaining in their deck. So this is going to be a war of resources, and as soon as this Yveltal goes down, then we have pretty much won the game at this point. Let's reattach an energy, and we're going to be good to go. Just keep attacking my opponent, putting a damage counter, or 2 damage counters, onto the Zigzagoon and Eternatus once again, getting that double knockout with the Zigzagoon and Yveltal both going down. So all we need to do now is get a knockout on this Eternatus VMAX, and the game will be all wrapped up and completely ours. Of course, we don't have boss's orders available to us anymore, unfortunately, since we do only play one, and for the most part we are just going to be stalling out our opponent, since they won't be able to attack us whatsoever, just like in this situation. Now, they do have another Zigzagoon that they can play down. They're going to be putting us up to 100 damage on our active Decidueye, but considering we have 2 more Decidueye that you're going to have to get through, I highly doubt that my opponent is going to be able to come up with a solution here. We see a Quick Ball coming down, getting rid of a card and getting themselves an Eternatus. Did they just get rid of a boss's orders? They did indeed. They discarded a boss's orders, which, I mean, sure, they're not going to be able to make use of it, but here we see another boss's orders from my opponent, looking to try and stall now on their end, but we do have the Scoop Up Net in our hand, so we can actually just play that to our advantage and bring that Decidueye into our hand. And this is a perfect situation to show off the power of Scoop Up Net, putting up our clean Decidueye. And I don't even think we have to put down a Rowlet again, as the game is going to be pretty much wrapped up from here, and we can continue to attack our opponent, dealing the 20 onto Eternatus VMAX, I think, as well as the Zigzagoon. Why not? We're taking a knockout here after all, so it makes sense to go for this. And we are taking another prize card, going down to 2 remaining. Like I said, my opponent only has 5 cards remaining in their deck, well, 4 now, so it really is just a matter of time before we win this game, as there's no real way that they can get through our total wall, our forest camo, completely keeping us hidden from our opponent's Pokemon V. They promote the Zigzagoon here, so we can easily get a knockout once again, since they do have a weakness, but even without that we are going to be dealing 90 damage to get the knockout. And there, finally see the concession from my opponent, and we get our first win with the Decidueye deck at long last. And we are going to be going into the next round here. So round 2, we're up against a Mew. Not really sure what my opponent's playing because Mew is in pretty much every deck right now. And we are unfortunately starting off with the A-Bomb, which is pretty much the worst start that you could get. We do at least have a Quick Ball, so we can grab a Rowlet. And we could always get the Snorlax as well, I suppose, and retreat into it. But at the same time, I kind of like having the A-Bomb here. I mean, we do get the option of having my opponent discard till they have 5, but for the most part you're not going to have more than that anyway unless it's something like ADP. So I think we will just go for the Snorlax here. Don't really mind that. We're going to be down an energy attachment, but at least this way we do establish our board, getting the Snorlax and the Rowlet into play. And we could always just go into the Snorlax here and draw our 3 cards, see what we get into. We do have the Turf Field for the following turn, so we have the guaranteed Decidueye turn 2, assuming of course that my opponent doesn't get a knockout somehow. Let's see what they're playing. If they're playing, perhaps they're not going to be playing. And let's see, we have a Air Balloon coming down as well as a Power Plant. Not going to be a problem for us. We don't have any Pokemon that make use of GX abilities, and we did see the Urshifu VMAX there. Totally fine, as that's definitely a Pokemon V that we can wall up against and prevent my opponent from dealing any damage to us. The only downside and issue here is that my opponent is playing the Mew, so we won't be able to deal any bench damage, unfortunately. We see a Pokemon here, the Gengar Mimikyu, which you don't see very often, using their GX attack, so we're not actually able to play any cards out of our hand, and we're going to have to pass over to my opponent as we can't do anything. But we do at least still have the turn 2 Decidueye, which is pretty good as long as my opponent doesn't play a Marnie. They don't even have an energy to attack with, so they're in a horrible position here. We have the Turf Field that we can put into play and grab ourselves that Decidueye that I spoke about. And we also have the Mew that we can make use of. Don't really want to be putting down the Mew because it is just an excess Pokemon, but we do at least have a bunch of cards that we can play out here. We have the Level Ball to grab ourselves another Rowlet, and my opponent concedes. Their hand is completely dead, so they're just going to concede the game. We get another easy win, walling up against the Pokemon GX and Vs. That's exactly what you want from Decidueye. Let's go. I'll see you in the finals. Here we are in the finals. We have lost the coin flip, unfortunately though, and my opponent is opting to go first. So a bit of a shame for us, as I have really enjoyed going first here. Definitely helps Decidueye out so much when you get to go first and draw a bunch of cards with Snorlax, but here we go, we do still get the Snorlax. I think we'll hold off on playing any of these cards so that we don't show my opponent on anything really. I mean, Mew and Fuelin's not showing anything, but still, we'll hold on to them just in case we want to use them as cannon fodder and discard fodder. It looks like my opponent's playing a Centiskorch VMAX deck. Certainly not something that has been as prevalent as it once was in the meta, but still an extremely powerful deck. And we'll have to see how many of the Volcanion they're playing, because that is really going to be the thing that puts it into their favour. If they're playing lots of Volcanion, then it's going to be a very easy matchup for them, because we'll be forced to find our weakness guard energy as quickly as possible, as also trying to get into the Mallow and Lanas so that we can heal off any damage that they deal. But my opponent is using a Pokecom here to search out a second Centiskorch V rather than a Volcanion, so that kind of tells me that they're not playing Volcanion, or they're just opting to not get it out of the deck because they don't think it's going to be relevant. We have a Quick Ball. We did get the Rosa, which I kind of want to hold on to here, so we can Quick Ball for a Rowlet and get that out of the deck. And we also have the Field that we can play down just to get it out of the hand, as we don't really need it right now. And I don't want to play any of these cards. As much as getting stuff with the Guzmahala would be great, I don't want to lose any of these other cards in my hand here, so we'll just Gormandize, we'll draw 3 cards. We get into a Pokédoll, which is actually going to be very good here. not seen any Pokédoll throughout all of the previous matches that we've played, so very good to finally see a Pokédoll. And let's see, my opponent going for the Evolution Incense. That's going to grab them the Centiskorch VMAX. And they are going to be evolving the active. They already have one energy on there, so it makes sense. And they do get the Daily Change coming down. And looking for a second energy. Can have a look at the discard pile. They're playing a Rose, which is very interesting. They're looking to discard their hand and attach energy with Rose rather than just, you know, being a normal person and using Welder. But they do also get the boss's orders, unfortunately, so since we didn't get a second Rowlet down, it's really going to hurt us and put us back a number of turns here. My opponent taking the first prize card will have to promote our Snorlax once again, and we can always put the Pokédoll into play, of course. And I think we're just looking to get a Rowlet out, so we can use our Rosa to do that. Hopefully my opponent doesn't have another boss's orders, because that's really going to hurt us, but we do at least have a level ball we can make use of, and we can grab ourselves a grass energy here. So yeah, really unfortunate that my opponent got the boss's orders. If they hadn't have done that, we definitely would have had a Decidueye right now, but we are behind and we can at least get our double the Rowlet out, you know, the little guy, the little round owl. We can attach a big charm somewhere. Let's put it onto the Snorlax, why not, since we do want to draw as much as possible here. And we will Gormandize for 2. We get a couple of nice draws here with the capture energy being allowing us to get another basic out. We are really just looking for the Decidueye here though, that's going to be the main thing. I think we can Cynthia and Caitlyn on this following turn to get the Rosa back. That's probably going to be the best course of action. And then if my opponent knocks out the Snorlax, then we can promote the Pokédoll for sure. But they are going to be using a Quick Ball. They're getting a Crobat to use Dark Asset. So the way that my opponent is playing, it kind of tells me that they're not using the Volcanion in their deck whatsoever. Otherwise they probably would have grabbed it by now with one of these Quick Balls. And if that's the case, then this matchup is probably going to be very winnable for us, but we do finally see a Volcanion coming down now as the last bench Pokemon for my opponent. And we see my opponent missing the knockout as well, not able to get any extra energy into play either, which is great. So like I said, I think we're going to use our Cynthia and Caitlyn here, go ahead and discard a card, getting rid of the Snorlax. And we can get the Rosa back into our hand. We also get to draw 3 cards. Unfortunately, none of those are the Decidueye or Turffield, so we'll just have to continue to try and draw through our deck here. I think we'll attach a capture energy onto the Rowlet so we can have a look at the deck. And we do only have the Apom left for our basic Pokemon, so should probably shuffle in a Rowlet at some point. We'll just fail that for now. We do have the level ball that we can make use of to get a Dartrix, and we will be evolving into that. So let's see what we can attach onto. Let's evolve into the one that we just attached energy onto. So that seems reasonable to me. And we could also go for a Scoop Up Net here and promote a Doll, which seems reasonable since we aren't going to be able to make use of the Snorlax this turn. So I kind of like that. We are losing the Big Charm, but that's fine. We can promote the Doll, and we could always put the Snorlax back down, but we don't actually have any way of drawing cards, so we'll just pass it over to my opponent and force them to take a knockout on the Pokédoll here, assuming of course that they don't have a boss's orders, which would certainly be the worst case scenario for us. Let's have a look at the discard pile for my opponent. They do have one boss's orders down, but they are just forced to take a knockout on that Pokédoll as I said, which is excellent. And we can promote let's promote the Rowlet, I think, since it does have the grass energy, so we'll go for that. Since my opponent did get a knockout, we are able to make use of our Rosa, so we can get a Decidueye, and we have a rare candy already, so we don't need to get that. Get a Tycall, I think, that seems pretty reasonable, or we could also go for the Turffield, I think. Yeah, let's get the Turffield, might as well. And we don't have anything else that we can grab, unfortunately. We only have one grass energy available, so we'll just go for these 2 cards, and we are certainly in need of them anyway, so we can rare candy the active, get our Decidueye, and also put the turf field into play to grab ourselves a second Decidueye. Get these both into play, it's going to stop my opponent from dealing any damage to us, and we also have the weakness guard energy to protect against that Volcanion over there. And we could also use the Fion. I kind of like it, I kind of also don't like it, as we are going to be hitting into my opponent's main attacker here, so let's just hold off on the Fion. And I mean, it is giving my opponent a option to boss his orders, that's the only thing that I'm concerned about here. So let's just hold off on it, I think, and we'll hit into the opponent and start doing damage onto the Volcanion, and we'll also damage the Centiskorch in the back there. If we can do damage onto the Volcanion a couple of times, and then when they do promote it we can hit it for 90, then we should be in a reasonable position, but until then we'll hold off on the Fion. We'd also like to find a Mallow Lana, that's the next step in the plan, for if my opponent does hit into us with the Volcanion, we can then heal off all of the damage with the Mallow Lana. But we just see a pass from my opponent, which is excellent. We get into another weakness guard energy, which I'm definitely going to be attaching onto our bench Decidueye, and we can use our turf field to search our deck, getting a Dartrix. We're not going to be able to use it right now, but that's totally fine, as we can just continually attack our opponent and put damage across their board. Now that Volcanion is going to be in range, so we can get one hit on it, and this is exactly what you want with the Decidueye deck and its deep camo, or deep forest camo I should say. There's the attachment onto the Volcanion now, so they are going to be going in with that at some point. Perhaps this turn they could retreat, but no, we're just going to be seeing another pass from my opponent. And there's not really anything that we can do with this hand. We can continue to thin the deck, I suppose, grab our last Decidueye out, and just keep attacking our opponent. We could always use the Guzma as well, but not really anything that we need out of the deck with that, so we'll not bother doing it. We'll just attack our opponent again, putting damage onto the Centiskorch as well as the Dedenne there. And we've almost got enough for getting a knockout on this active Centiskorch VMAX. There comes another energy onto the Volcanion, so perhaps they're going to be getting a switch. There's the Mallow Lana, so that's what they were waiting for. Going to be healing off 120 damage from the VMAX here, and going to be going in with the Volcanion to deal 110. But since we did deal damage to it already, we are going to be getting a one-hit knockout, which is exactly what we want. And we are looking for the top deck Mallow Lana, but unfortunately it's not to be. We do have the big charm we can attach onto our bench here, which is fine. And I think we could use the Guzma just to thin the deck, I guess. See what we have in there available to us. I guess we'll go with the turf fields first. We can search the deck this way. We have two Mallow Lana available to us. We have a Boss's Orders, and we have a couple of special energy, but nothing too crazy here. We have the tag calls that we can certainly try and find soon, and the Guzma is not going to search out too much, just a couple of special energies, but we'll still go for it. Well, I say a couple, it's going to be one, but I think it's still going to be worthwhile since we do have to work towards the Mallow Lana here. We'll get the grass and we'll get the big umbrella. I think we'll actually get the capture now that I think about it, although we do need the grass for our bench, so yeah, I suppose we'll have to grab the grass. Kind of wanted the capture so that we could get another relic out, but we really need the grass here so that we can attack with this benched Decidueye. And then we can just attack here and start putting pressure onto my opponent once again, building up damage as much as possible. That big heal that they did, definitely a big setback for us, but we have taken out our first Volcanion. It's going to be on my opponent to get another one set up, which is certainly reasonable, and they are able to do it. They just need a welder plus the energy plus a switch as well, and if they get all that, then they will be able to get a knockout, but if not, we should be in a pretty reasonable spot here. We do see the quick ball, just going to be getting them another Volcanion. There it is, the second Volcanion coming down. Let's see if they have the energy and the welder for it as well. We see Boss's Orders, which is going to be bringing up our Fion, and they are taking a knockout on Fion, so a bit unfortunate that we did leave the liability of Fion there, but it happens, and there's not really anything that we could do to avoid that, unfortunately. We can now at least promote our other Decidueye, so we can go for that. And we can also make use of our Rosa to search out a bunch of stuff that we can make use of here. We have the Tycol that we can grab, and we'll also get the Apom, and there's nothing else that we can take here, so just these two cards, which is perfectly fine. And we could also use a Armor Rod if we wanted to, but I think we'll hold off on that. And there's not really anything else that we need here, I don't think, so we'll just start attacking my opponent, putting 20 onto the Volcanion, and another 20 onto the Centiskorch again, continuing to attack into it, and try and build up damage on that Volcanion before it becomes active. My opponent hitting us with the Marnie, so our massive hand is going to go to the bottom of the deck. We are losing a Tycol, but we still have a couple in there, so we should be able to draw into it no problem. And there we go, there's one, as well as the boss's orders, which is very nice. But my opponent does have only 20 damage, and they did attach that heat energy, so they're not going to be able to get one hit from us just yet. They are retreating though, which is fine by me, as we're able to still hit into the VMAX on the bench. And we do have the Tycol that we could make use of as well if we so desire. I think we could go for the boss, but it's not going to make much of a difference since it's not going to be a one-hit knockout. Although if my opponent attaches another heat energy, then that is going to be a major setback for us. And we could also bring up this Centiskorch to get a knockout that way, which I kind of like. So we could actually just go for that here, taking the initiative and getting 3 prize cards. I kind of like it. So let's go for that. We'll not bother playing any of the other cards that we have, and we'll just continue to do damage where we were already doing it. And we are getting 3 prize cards here, knocking out a big VMAX, going down to 2 remaining, and my opponent does have the Volcanion that they're setting up, but I'm not too worried about it since we have our double Decidueye set up, and we did just get into another Rowlet, which is excellent, so we can get that into play and start setting up a 3rd Decidueye. Here we go, my opponent hitting into us. They didn't get the heat energy, so we are going to be getting a knockout, and I think we will be putting the Rowlet into play. My opponent would only take 1 prize card on it, so I'm not too worried about putting it into play, to be honest. And we'll even attach an energy onto it, why not? We have a Tycol, of course, that we can make use of here, so we could always go for it, or we could wait on it since we are getting a knockout. My opponent has, oh no, they're not getting a knockout. We have a 10 HP extra remaining, my bad, so maybe it is worth doing the Tycol play, but then my opponent's just going to hit into us anyway, so probably not worth it overall. We'll just hit into my opponent and see what they take from here. Continue to do 20 damage across my opponent's bench. Bit unfortunate that they did hit that heat energy, to be honest. Saving their Volcanion, still having 10 HP remaining, is really irritating, but we're very close to victory here. We can almost taste it. My opponent doesn't have a lot of options since they are really needing to focus on those Volcanion and get a bunch of Volcanion into play as much as possible. We see another attack from my opponent, just doing 50 damage since they did lose all of those energy earlier. And now is the point where we can go for our Tycol, grabbing us the Mallow and Lanas and getting them out of the deck. Go for the Mallow and Lana play, discarding the Level Ball, I think, as well as the Professor's Research, since we don't need both of them here. And definitely switching into our other Decidueye. And then we can also attach our energies, and I think we'll just attach the Capture actually. It's not going to matter if we attach the grass, we definitely don't want to get Apom, leave that in the deck, and go for the attack here. Getting a knockout on my opponent, going down to 1 prize card remaining. Let's see what my opponent can pull out the bag here, but I highly doubt it's going to be anything, and we are going to be getting a victory here, and getting the full amount of rep out of our key, and really showing off just how powerful Decidueye is in this meta, assuming of course you can hit the right matchups, and that can be a pain sometimes, but considering the amount of Pokemon V, VMAX and Pokemon GX that are in this meta, it shouldn't be too much of a difficulty to actually get the right matchups and go up against what you need to go up against. My opponent choosing to discard our energy here, but we do top deck the big power cell, which is actually going to mitigate the attack here to remove our energy, which is the exact top deck that we needed to combat them there, which is excellent, and gotta love when that happens. So we can continue to attack into my opponent, no problem, and they're not going to be able to stop us whatsoever. All they can do is use a boss's orders. That would mess us up a little bit, but even then, the amount of damage that we've put onto my opponent's board, there's no way that they're going to be able to win this game. I mean, like, you gotta look at this, we have 180 damage just from dealing bench damage. So yeah, you gotta love the bench spread that Decidueye does. I certainly love spread decks, and I really need to do some more spread deck videos. Here we go, my opponent is choosing to discard their energy, not realizing the big power cell is going to protect us. So we get into another Decidueye. I think we'll just hold on to the hand. My opponent gives us a well played, realizing that the big power cell is protecting us from their attack, and that there's nothing that they can do, so they're most likely just going to be passing or hitting us again, but not doing anything. And let's see what they go for. They have a giant hearth. They can search out an energy card. They're pretty much low on energy at this point, and there we go. We see the pass, and we are able to pick up a victory and get the full amount of rep out of this tournament key, which is awesome. Showing off the power of Decidueye's Deep Forest Camel, and really the meta state as a whole, and the amount of Pokemon V and GX that are being played right now. So I'd highly recommend playing Decidueye if you're not already playing it in Players Cup 4. And as always, give this video a like if you did enjoy it, because it is quite a long one today.